The next thing I know, I hear the front door open and the sounds of someone walking in, which was odd because the door should have been locked anyways.
This is Creepy with Coffee, where we share bone-chilling tales of the paranormal.
This is a story posted on Reddit by AnimalSam34 titled Poltergeist Activity Saved My Kid. For context, so basically I've experienced weird things happening ever since I started living alone, particularly with things being moved around or seemingly being messed with right in front of me. It doesn't seem to happen in only one area either. The experiences have followed me to every new living situation, sometimes even just out and about too, like at work. Other people notice things moving on their own when I'm around too, and it's commonly joked about that a ghost that follows me. For examples, I was at work and was talking to a coworker while he was cleaning the bar. He had set a glass down on the counter, and while he kept talking to me, I noticed the glass start slowly sliding in circles on the counter. It continued for at least 45 seconds before it just stopped moving. Another day, I was at Goodwill with my grandmother, and we were talking to the cashier at the front for checkout. Behind the cashier were shelves of purses. I had been absent-mindedly staring at one of the purses on the shelf when suddenly it started to slide towards the edge of the shelf. It fell off the shelf and it landed on the floor, which prompted the cashier to turn around and say, "Oops, must have been too close to the edge." I insisted to my grandma that I watch it slide to the edge about 4 inches before it had fallen. Some examples with witnesses. One night while watching movies, my roommate and I had watched a glass slide off our coffee table from a distance of about 3 inches and landed on the floor. Nothing had touched it or been in the vicinity beforehand. I looked at my roommate and confirmed that she watched the whole thing, and she said she did. Another time, my roommate and we were sitting at home. I was in the living room and she was in her bedroom. The next thing I know, I hear the front door open and the sounds of someone walking in, which was odd because the door should have been locked anyways. Nonetheless, I waited for one of my roommate's friends to walk in because that was the usual thing, but no one did. So I went over to check. The door was wide open. I closed it. I locked it and asked my roommate if she had heard the door open and someone walked in too. She said that she assumed it was me leaving to go somewhere. We both agree it was weird. Up until now, the experiences hadn't really been significant. However, I just had an interesting experience that prompted me to tell this story. I was sitting on my couch on my phone when I noticed I heard my blinds on my patio door moving. I looked to see if the door was open due to the wind, but it was closed. Then I noticed only 2 of the blinds were moving and they were rapidly bumping against each other. I assumed one of my cats were messing with them, so I looked behind the couch, which half of my patio blinds are actually behind the couch, but there was no cat messing with them. They were still moving in front of me, so I grabbed them, and after I let go, they stopped moving. That is when I hear a faint ringing bell sound coming from the couch. I remember I have not seen my other cat, which has a bell on its collar, since I went to bed. Before I went to bed, I had taken apart the couch, trying to find my phone that I had misplaced. I thought maybe the kid was in the couch somehow, but I had no idea how or when he would have climbed in there. I checked anyway and took apart the couch. He was not inside. I was getting more confused because I still hear the bell ringing faintly. I then realized that the very bottom of the couch, where the springs were, had the smallest of spaces he could possibly be in. Although once again, I don't know how he got in there, but you know, cats. I then was able to get him out and I could see that he had been probably uncomfortable and oxygen deprived for a while. I looked again at the blind and they were still. At this point, I think I believe in the presence of something, but I think I just want to know if it actually does also bring good intentions as well, because anyway, it did help me save my cat. Dave is not a mean-spirited one, but rather a more polite ghost who usually referred to himself as Dave. Never saw him, ever, but the best way to describe his voice is an elderly hardcore smoker answering you from another room. His voice is always muffled, but rough and coarse. Here are a few stories with Dave, edited for some clarification. The first time I ever actually heard Dave was when I was 9. I was in the living room, reading a Batman comic book. I heard Dave asking me if Batman was fighting the Joker. I mindlessly just answered, "Yeah, you can read this after I'm done." Took my young brain a minute before realizing that there was no one else in the house to ask me that at that time. My mom once told me she was taking laundry to her room when she suddenly bumped into something large and invisible, making her fall backwards with the laundry. She then heard Dave exclaim, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" My mom saw no one, but she did felt like there was someone helping her get up, as well as pointing out where all her fallen clothing went. In my lifetime, we had about 7 cats who have lived with us. Every now and then, I will see one of them rolling over and enjoying someone or something petting them. I never could get it on camera though. In high school, I got a few friends to bring out an Ouija board to my house in hopes to talk to Dave. Before we could even begin, the little triangle thing that comes with the board vanished without a trace. My friends and I were confused until we heard Dave say in a rough voice, "No, this is not the time. There is someone outside that you do not want to invite in here." My friends and I just sat there in silence. Then we put the board away, only taking it out to burn it a few months later after summer came. Only once did I ask why did Dave haunt our house. His response to this question was him knocking on the walls, leading me to my bedroom door. I opened it up, looked inside, and felt him push me into my room and close the door on me. He sent me to my room for asking him such a personal question. I never brought it up since. There hasn't been much activities of him since 2014, and my parents who still live there think he has moved on. For me, he was a great ghost, and I do hope he is in a better place now. Reading a story posted on Reddit by No Difference 9242, titled "Laughably Obvious Sign from Recently Deceased Father." Basically, my dad died pretty quickly about 2 weeks ago. My dad and I were very close, so I was devastated, and so was my mother. In short, my mother was having a meltdown while we had been talking the morning after my dad passed. My mom and I had just finished making the bed in my parents' bedroom. We leave the room to get something, come back in, and there sitting on the bed are 2 Tylenol PM capsules, literally moving side to side on the bed. Nobody was touching the bed. The windows were completely closed, no wind of any kind. That was without a doubt my father telling us that he's right there with us, and for my mum to take 2 and relax. It's what she takes to help her sleep sometimes. Yup, that actually just happened about 2 weeks ago. It blew my mind. Nothing like that has ever happened to me, and I was an utter skeptic before. Help me understand what I witnessed, please? Reading a story from Reddit posted by The Questionable Moon, titled "Imaginary Friend Ghost." When my cousin's son was little, He was super attached to his imaginary friend named Joseph. He would take Joseph everywhere and do things like demand his parents buckle him into the car. So he was definitely more attached than most kids. But some kids just have really realistic imaginary friends, so they didn't think it was anything weird. Fast forward several years. My cousins have moved out of that house and their son is a lot older. One day, the dad runs into the family who had bought the house from them who has a little boy of their own. As the conversation goes on, it gets brought up that the little boy who lives in the house now has an imaginary friend he is super attached to, named Joe. Obviously, my cousin tells the family about this son who has his imaginary friend named Joseph while living in the same house. It's interesting, but they ultimately assume it's just a funny coincidence. Fast forward again to the present day. The last family moved out of the house and for several years it sat vacant. Recently, someone bought the house and renovated it. One day, my cousin ran into the guy who was renovating it. They live in a small town. It is not weird that he keeps seeing the people who bought this old house. They were talking about the house, and my cousin mentioned the funny coincidence about the two boys having an imaginary friend with a similar name. At that point, the guy doing the renovations tell my cousin that while they were taking out a wall in the house, they found an old journal that had the name Joseph written on the cover of it. Reading a story posted on Reddit by Sky Lily entitled Cemetery House. I haven't shared this story with a lot of people, mainly because I've just never been given the opportunity to bring it up. But my sister and I shared an experience that we will never forget. When I was around 7 and my sister was 9, my family moved into a house that was beside a huge cemetery. I'm talking thousands and thousands of bodies buried there. You couldn't see our house from the road. It was hidden by trees, so our driveway was long, and as you drove up our driveway, you could literally read headstones. It was convenient for my family at the time because my dad worked at the cemetery as a grave digger. As young kids, my sister and I weren't scared of this house or the cemetery. We had just not really been exposed to the idea of paranormal things yet. We actually would spend a lot of time walking around the cemetery and the fountains that was there. We would also go visit our dad while he was at work. My mom's mom lived with us at the time. We called her Nanny. She had strokes in the past and was kind of frail. She couldn't walk that well and needed assistance doing certain things. She was just really weak from her strokes. But at this point in her time, her mind was still sharp. My nanny's room and my sister's room were connected by a bathroom, so each room had a door to the bathroom. One day, my parents went to a grocery shop and left us with my nanny to watch us. It probably would have been a good idea to do so, but my sister and I were pretty well behaved. We wouldn't do anything bad or give our nanny a hard time. My sister and I were sitting in the middle of my sister's room playing on the floor. All of a sudden, the bathroom door that was closed started shaking violently, like someone was grabbing the doorknob and shaking it as hard as they could. We immediately got up and went to our nanny. She was sitting in the room watching TV. We stayed in the room until our parents came back. I know for certain it wasn't our nanny because she would have said so. Even then, there's no way she would have been able to shake the door like that. She was just too weak. My sister had other things that happened to her in that house as well, like she had figures peeking in at her through the crack in her bedroom door. We would also see a little girl with black hair. But most of these experiences happened outside our house. Reading a story posted on Reddit by That One Bounty Girl, titled Son Talking to Someone. My 2-year-old son had a stomach bug last weekend. So to keep an eye on him after he went to bed, I had plugged in the video baby monitor to make sure he wasn't throwing up and etc. Around 11:45 p.m, I noticed the screen light up, which it does whenever it detects sound, and he was seemingly sleep-talking at first, so I listened in, and it was the usual baby gibberish. About 5 minutes later, he had his eyes open and was talking to someone. He was looking straight up and pointing to the direction that he was talking to. He kept saying, "Go to sleep." As he's only 2, I couldn't make out everything he was saying but a few words here and there. I swore I could hear a man's voice, but I put it down to being nearly midnight and I was tired. Plus my partner, which is my baby's dad, was getting ready for bed in the room with me. Fast forward to the next morning. For some reason, I thought I would try something. My grandpa died 5 years ago, obviously before my son was born, and I was close with him, but I've never shown a photo to my son before. So I found a picture of my grandfather and asked my son who it was. He replied, "Grandpa." I thought I misheard it, so I asked again. Same answer. I said, "Where is Grandpa?" My son replied, "Upstairs." I took him upstairs and asked where he was again. He then pointed into his room and said, "Grandpa's gone." Reading a story on Reddit posted by All Good Things 96, titled "A Happy Paranormal Experience." This happened to my mum, so it's not really my story to tell, but it left a great impact on me. Growing up, my mum had a childhood best friend who lived next door. My mum was an only child, and her friend had a big family, so she would always go over to play. When they became teenagers, they did begin to drift apart, but throughout the years, their closeness would come and go in waves. My mum always loved her and considered her as a big sister. She was the maid of honor at my mum's wedding, and they always had love for each other. Throughout life, my mum's friend would go through various jobs and boyfriends and living situations, and every time she and my mum caught up, she would say, "This is the best I have ever been. I know I said it before, but this time I really mean it." My mum's friend passed when she was 36 from cancer. She said the last conversation they had was over the phone when she told her the bad news. They both agreed that later that fall they would do the breast cancer walk together. She died shortly after. Obviously, my mum was devastated. I was just a kid, but I will never forget seeing her cry that way. My mum told me that she went to a medium soon after because she was looking for a closure. She won't tell me everything that was discussed, but she did say that when she asked the medium to ask her if she was at peace, the medium told her that she said, "This is the best I've ever been. I know I said it before, but this time I really mean it." Reading a story posted on Reddit by Academic Pudding 2568, titled "Swimming Pool Ghosts." I used to work in an assisted living facility that was formerly a hotel. The big room where the dining hall was had previously been an indoor swimming pool area, but it had been filled in years ago, before opening as an assisted living place. There was no swimming pool anywhere near that area now. On several different nights, this one female resident who suffered from dementia would come to us and start complaining about all the loud kids running around and making noises, splashing and playing around the swimming pool. Another female resident, whose room was upstairs, right above the dining hall, would also complain about kids' noises playing around the swimming pool area. We don't have an explanation for this, but they are sure that they heard kids playing in a swimming pool and would have complained from time to time. This is also the place where I would regularly hear someone walk behind me, and when I turned around, there was no one there. That's all for today's episode. We hope we have sent shivers down your spine and left you with a haunting feeling that will linger long after the episode has ended. Join us again next time as we explore more tales of the paranormal. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review or a comment, and share this with your friends who love a good scare. Until next time, remember to keep an eye over your shoulder and listen closely to the whispers in the dark. This is Kim, signing off.